This is Nick Preston, and this is Freestyle Skiing. Freestyle skiing grew out of the growing popularity of skiing during the late 60s and early 70s. Every ski area had a ski school, and every ski school would have a Swiss or Austrian instructors not only expected to teach their customers how to turn and carve and ski ever more challenging trails, but were always part entertainers for their customers. Ski schools would offer up their best instructors as show skiers, featuring synchronized skiing, trick skiing, like Royal Christies or rolling over their tips, or trick jumping like Galundasprungs, and even flips on skis. Sometimes they would gather us customers up on the Black Diamond trails and charge down the moguls and other natural features, smashing through the snow with speed, agility, and a certain showmanship. Truly, these were the first hot doggers. Add to this the famous Stein Eriksen flips, Roger Staub's cliff jumping, and Art Furr's trick skiing and stunts, all of which were the highlight of the ski movies of the 60s and 70s. It wasn't long before young skiers like myself emulated our instructor heroes, and we grew more and more experimental. Hot dogging became a full-time activity at ski areas across the country. And by 1972, ski areas began to offer up hot dog competitions, which by 1973, at the Waterville Valley ski area, the Skiing Magazine and Chevrolet Freestyle Championships first broke out into 3 separate competitions of mogul skiing, aerials, and trick skiing, or ballet. The combined skier of all 3 won the Chevy. The trick skiing part has now evolved from ballet skiing into the disciplines of slopestyle and halfpipe, mostly thanks to the efforts of ski areas to provide a multitude of thoughtfully designed jumps and rail features. Forward 50 years from its inception, and now freestyle skiing is a 5-discipline Olympic sport: moguls, aerials, slopestyle, halfpipe, and ski cross. For myself, I was a regular at the J Peak Ski School in the 60s as a teenager, where the Austrian and American instructors would teach trick skiing and jumping as part of our ski instruction program, after, of course, we had mastered carving down the expert trails. In 1972, I became a ski instructor myself at Shawnee Peak in Maine after graduating college in 1971. In 1973, I entered my first pro event at Berkshire East in Massachusetts, where I won $350, which equaled a month's worth of my ski instructor pay at the time. Needless to say, I was hooked. Once Waterville Valley offered up the first professional freestyle skiing competition, similar amateur freestyle skiing arose at many eastern ski areas, including at my own ski area at the time, Sugarloaf, Maine. These junior freestyle programs attracted hundreds of young skiers and offered a fun and trendy alternative to the alpine race programs at these ski areas. USSA, the sanctioning body of competitive skiing in the United States, sanctioned amateur freestyle events, and the sport took on a legitimate training and competition format. As an instructor, Susie and I became the coaches for the junior program of 70 kids. Eventually, we both headed off to try our own hand at competing and enjoyed some early success. With success and several podium finishes, the prize money was significant, and it kept us on the road from one pro event to the next. So by 1974 and 5, we were full-time competing and coaching, including setting up summer training on water ramps and trampolines. Throughout the 70s, the popularity of freestyle skiing grew exponentially, attracting thousands of young amateur skiers and many a wannabe pro, some of suspect abilities, but most dedicated to this new skiing sport. Ski magazines were full of freestyle pictures and personalities and fed the popularity. Pro competitions attracted thousands of spectators. At the Professional Freestyle Associate Finals at Snowbird, 14,000 spectators lined the courses. During the 70s decade, freestyle skiing was home to the coolest, hippest, and most popular people in the world of skiing. Wayne Wong, Susie Chaffee, and Eddie Ferguson were household names. Even Stein Eriksen and Jean-Claude Killy declared freestyle the future of skiing. Competitions featured cars for the winners and prize money in the thousands for both men and women. Women's freestyle, sponsored by Colgate-Palmolive, was the third richest women's pro sport behind tennis and golf. NBC Wide World of Sports was present at every major pro event to be televised. And then there was these clothing trends. Ski clothing went toward whatever freestyle skiers were wearing. One-piece Bogners, corduroy bib pants, tie-dyed and polka dot windbreakers, headbands, and American flag bandanas, mirrored sunglasses, and a signature Midas muffler scarf tied around the leg. Skis got shorter and featured twin-tip designs. The early days of freestyle in the 70s were full of enthusiasts of all ages and certainly of all abilities, from wannabes nearly killing themselves attempting tricks and flips with no real skill, to excellent overall skiers and former world-class racers who could hot dog with great agility and finesse. Then came the former gymnasts, divers, and trampolinists, who may or may not have had expert skiing skills, but boy, could they flip and twist magnificently. Many were also in the prize money and attracted more of their own. Because of all the incentives for fame, money, and notoriety, any serious competitor, amateur or professional, began to seek out real training in acrobatics and skiing skills, which was also consistent with the overall popularity of sports activities during the 70s. Susie and I, both competitors, formed a training group with a bunch of freestyle friends. Training for us included lots of ballet skiing, mogul training, fitness and conditioning, and we recruited diving and gymnastic coaches to teach us acrobatics. We invested in trampolines and constructed our own ramps into the ponds and lakes to learn and practice aerials. Flips were where it was at, and any serious freestyler needed front and back flips, even doubles, and all of us were targeting the ever-intriguing, elusive, and the holy grail of freestyle flips, the Mobius flip, which is just a trendy term for a flip with a full twist. Susie and I were also hired at Sugarloaf to coach the junior freestyle programs, and by 1975 we developed our own freestyle camps with trampolines, a water ramp, and plastic ski surfaces layered on top of a ski slope for practicing ballet tricks. We attracted young amateurs, coaches, and fellow pros, and all of us became part of a marvelous summer training group. In my career, 50 U.S. team members, 12 Olympians, and 2 Olympic gold medalists have come through my programs. In addition to 35 years at the helm of the Waterville Valley Freestyle Program and Waterville Valley Ski Academy, I started a freestyle training camp company called Freestyle America, which includes training programs at our Campton, New Hampshire training facility, also at the Waterville Valley Ski Area, at the Lake Placid, New York Olympic Jumping Complex, on the glaciers of Whistler, British Columbia in July, and at the Holderness School Snow Sports Program. From my first experience as a freestyle competitor to freestyle coach, parent, and grandparent of freestyle skiers, freestyle skiing has remained a major focus and career pursuit. It's a life in skiing I couldn't have imagined as a child who was in love with skiing from the age of 5. And for those intent on pursuing the sport of freestyle skiing, no surprise to anyone, presents significant risks for the unskilled and uncoached. Not only do freestyle skiers need bumps, jumps, and parks, but coaching is key. Learn from the best and enjoy the most fun possible on a pair of skis.
I'm James Pouch, and right now I'll be talking about my experience with freestyle skiing. Freestyle skiing is a discipline within the sport that includes moguls, slopestyle, aerials, ski cross, and halfpipe. Each unique category has its own parameters for judging and its own style, making the sport unique among others. Freestyle skiing is an action sport on the rise, with 5 disciplines in the Olympics and a worldwide circuit and stage. It's growing in popularity and size. I've been skiing since before I can remember, but I started to get interested in going into the park when I was in middle school, so I must have been 12 or 13. Back then, I didn't really know anything about it. I was just scared of racing because people would yell at me from the lift for skiing on their course, so I went in the park. For those who don't know, the park is just a trail on the mountain that has all of the jumps and rails in it. There's a lot of slang that I might use, so I'll try my best to explain it all. At first, I was too scared to actually do anything, so I just watched other kids who sort of knew what they were doing. I was really interested just because it looked fun, and I wanted to be the cool kid who was hitting the biggest jump at West Mountain. Anyone in ski club on Thursday nights who had hit the 30-footer was the badass of the hill, or at least they thought they were. The first couple of years that I was skiing in the park were just for fun and to see if I was any good at it. I was mostly skiing at West Mountain and Gore Mountain, each pretty close to home, so it was easier for my parents on weekends. There were a few kids around who were really good in the park and who I looked up to and tried to copy. Most of those kids were in high school, a few years older than I was. Back then, I didn't know anything about competing. It wasn't as popular with the kids who I was skiing with. There were organized programs and things on the East Coast to get kids involved in competing, but I hadn't found out about those yet. When I was skiing at Gore, a backflip was the coolest thing to see. Everyone went crazy for them. Even today, a backflip is a classic crowd pleaser, but it's not as hard as it used to seem. Most of those kids who were good and had a lot of tricks were just the ones who were brave enough to try them. They were pretty out of control but could still land on their feet, so it was really cool to see. I started to get a good skill foundation when I joined the team at Okemo Mountain in Vermont. They had bigger and better jumps that I could learn on and get more consistent and start trying some tricks. I spent 2 years skiing weekends at Okemo, and by that time I was starting to get pretty good. I had began competing in small East Coast events and was still having fun. I finally learned a backflip, so I was starting to think that I was the shit. I found out about Waterville Valley when I was 13 and went to a couple of their camps to try it out. Waterville Valley is a ski mountain in New Hampshire that has training facilities built for what I was doing. After spending the fall on the airbag and trampolines at Waterville, I had some serious tricks and knew I was getting pretty good, so I went all in. For the last 3 years, I've been going to school at Waterville Valley Academy, a school that's built around competitive ski racing and freestyle. We ski 6 days a week and have a normal school course load, just with a different schedule. This spring, I'll graduate high school after a few successful years of competitive skiing. For the last 3 years, I've been lucky enough to travel the country competing in national and international events, going up against the best kids in the world right now. Skiing has brought me all over the world. In the last few years, I've followed a contest circuit that spans the US, and in the next year, I'll be traveling on the international circuit. The sport itself has changed my life. It's taught me that if you really want something, whether it's material or success, you have to work for it. I've worked hard to get to where I am now, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. While traveling with a group of your friends is a lot of fun, it's done a lot to make me independent and self-sufficient. There have been a few times over the years that stand out as learning moments. For instance, on my first international trip to Switzerland, I lost my passport and got stuck there for a few days. This was a great learning experience, but it's pretty safe to say that this will never happen again. To anyone just starting to get into the sport of free skiing, I would say just have fun. If you start to get good and want to compete in the sport, that's great. But if you just want to go out with your friends and have fun, that's fine too. As you start to get good and try more tricks, you'll probably fall and it'll probably hurt. I've definitely been through that. But once you get to a point where you're really comfortable with everything you're doing, it's all worth it. I will say that even at the level of competing that I'm at, my favorite thing to do is spend the day skiing with friends, not worrying about anything, just having fun.